Oh. How you doing? I can't. Sorry.
Nope, that's me.
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
My microphone just wasn't set up. Wonder if it's not going to be too busy. We don't have our fearless leader Matt going over the spec.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the project at all this week.
Yeah. I've been starting to work on the Rails instrumentation a little bit, which is exciting.
How's it going, I guess?
So far, pretty simple. Like I just basically have it tracing the controller actions.
Cool.
So it's nothing fancy, just like setting the operation name to the controller and action or something like that. So
yeah, I think it's like 80% of Rails, and then
yeah.
and the rest is like I guess Active Record's big, but it's kind of like a whole separate thing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Hey, Francis.
Hey.
Yeah, feel free to. I know you guys have an internal tracer. I actually think Matt's work in the New Relic tracer is probably the most robust of all the vendors. If I had to. I haven't dug too deeply into what some other folks are doing, but I know New Relics is pretty just covers more. Or is this a little bit like stuck in Rails 4?
I actually haven't looked at that one yet. So
one question I have is what do you think is a good minimum version of support for Rails? Because I know when you get back to like Rails 3, it starts to get really ugly. So I don't know if people even use it.
I don't actually know. I was hoping I wouldn't have to go that far back.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, I don't think we really want to support anything that far back.
Yeah, I would say if anything, be aggressive with like now's the opportunity to set expectations. Otherwise, we own it.
Yeah, we've tried to be aggressive with supported Ruby versions. So I think we also want to be aggressive
Oh,
with
right.
supported Rails versions.
Cool.
With 5 and up.
That's fine. That's fine. Whatever.
Yeah.
No one on Rails 4 would be using cool open source technology anyway. Um,
So I think Matt is not joining us today. I think he mentioned last week he's on vacation or something. Yeah, so I haven't attended the spec SIG meeting, so I can't really fill in for really the bulk of the meeting. So yeah, I'm not sure what else we want to talk about. I know we have a few PRs open at the moment. Matt has added B3 support. So I provided some feedback on that PR. But yeah, I think he's out for a bit. We have a PR to rename span context to span reference, which Matt thought wasn't going to be a thing last meeting, but then I guess it got enough support that it actually merged. But right after merging, like I put this PR together, and the consensus seems to be this isn't a great thing, and maybe we shouldn't merge it until there's been a little bit more debate about span context. So I don't really know what the outcome of that is yet.
Okay.
So for now, we're just, we've got the PR sitting there to do the rename if we need it. And we'll just hold off on it for now. That's obviously going to be a breaking change. Yeah, I have a small change that I want to make to the OTLP exporter, although I might wait until we've got the same change in our private tracing instrumentation rolled out into production just to test it out. But basically, brief description is the way it works right now, or at least in OTel, it's going to be the batch span processor. The way it works right now is that the thing that's enqueuing spans doesn't wake up the exporter thread until the buffer is half full. And then the default is the default buffer size is 2048 spans. The default batch size is 512 spans. So the way the defaults work, we typically enqueue 1024, then like the exporter thread has a 5-second timeout, so it'll check every 5 seconds anyway. But the problem we've seen in production is that some processors enqueue at a high rate, enqueue spans at a high rate, and the buffer can get overwhelmed, or like we overrun the buffer before the exporter has had a chance to do things. So the obvious thing is to like increase the buffer size, but when you increase the buffer size, you also increase the delay before the enqueuer actually kicks the exporter. So we want to change that to basically kick the exporter if you've got a batch worth of stuff to export, which is a reasonably small change, but should help with this a little bit. So it'll wake up the exporter thread sooner. Once it, like as soon as it has enough work to do, it'll wake it up. So yeah, we're going to try that in production. I just merged that change this morning in our private repo. We're going to try it out in production and then roll it into OTel as well. I looked at the Go implementation, and the Go implementation of this is using a channel, like a buffer channel. So it's basically notifying all the time. Like it's the equivalent of signaling on every NQ. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me. So the idea is we would kick off the exporter thread at 512 spans instead of whatever half the max buffer size is.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool. Yeah, I think makes sense. Yeah, I don't have strong opinions. I did one thing I noticed doing, which I actually have to, I'm like, it's out of date. No one's using it. Is I'm surprised when we hit the max buffer size, we let it go over the buffer size, or I'm confused on that part. Or
We don't let it go over the buffer size. We just
we
drop
just drop.
spans. Yeah.
One thing that my colleague on the Python tracer who had implemented in their exporter was sort of like a, where did I get this from? Or I'm sorry, just one of my colleagues had suggested this, and I thought it was a nifty idea, was just a randomized dropping. So it just drops randomly. It's sort of like extremely minor, but then if in like periods of heavy volume, you at least get a representative sample instead of missing everything after X period of time. So you just drop from, you just take the length of the buffer and say, okay, just pick one at random. So take the oldest or the newest or whatever. Interesting idea, but I certainly don't feel the need unless someone's asking for it.
Yeah.
While we're on the topic.
Yeah. I'm not sure I'd take that approach. I mean, I understand why you might want to, but in general, you're more likely to end up with broken traces that way.
Right. I'm forgetting that it's random in the sense of a random trace. The buffer in
Right.
Datadog
Yeah.
is not spans. It's right. Never mind.
Right. Yeah. So yours works a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amusingly, the service that we're having most trouble with has something similar in front of it. So they do their own batching per trace in front of our exporter, and occasionally they're generating like 40,000 or 45,000 spans per trace within the same process, and then they just like unleash that onto our exporter. Right. So a couple of those, and you very quickly blow through even a pretty large buffer.
Cool. Okay. Well, yeah. I wish you way more than luck. Okay. Yeah. I have been really away from Ruby for the past. I've been working on some collector stuff, and then just some customers internally had some issues. So I can definitely review the B3 and just feel free to ping me on the OTLP stuff, because I know I had looked previously, and I do still plan to finish the whatever GraphQL. Actually, I'd recently just done work on our ResQ integration. I think I can maybe sneak that in as well, but I should probably just start by. Ours is really old. It's just like we don't do any instrumentation of any of the enqueuing or the hooks or anything. It's just the jobs.
Yeah, that's okay. We may have some feedback on that. Just we have a weird fork of Rescue in our core application called Hedwig. I don't know why, but anyway. And that means that we, like in our internal instrumentation, we have this weird Rescue-like instrumentation, and then Rescue is derived from that, and then this Hedwig tracing is also derived from that. So we may ask for at least the Rescue instrumentation to support like the two models in that way. But we'll see how it goes.
I certainly don't use Rescue in production, so I defer to folks who have more experience with it. But I just figured that might be, I could at least get the ball moving by just in the, anyway, but cool. Everything sounds reasonable. I certainly don't have much to discuss because I've not been paying attention too closely to Ruby.
We do have, just trying to see, when did we last do this? So we have a few changes, or a couple of changes, I guess, that went in 4 days ago, both of which are breaking changes. So I'm thinking maybe we should cut a new release, maybe even today.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's fine with me. Let me, if you need me to thumbs up any of the PRs, or I know Daniel's been working closely with those. I'm sure.
Yeah, cool.
Robert can also help.
Awesome. Anything else people want to chat about?
Wilbert, is there anything we can help with, or any questions you might have? I know you're a little bit newer.
Yeah, I'm currently working on another project. So I'm just here to like familiarize myself and take some notes. But yeah, I think I'm good for now. Thanks, guys.
What are you working on?
It's kind of confidential, but
Okay,
soon
and
enough,
that-
I guess
No,
I'll be
then
able to tell
don't.
you
We're
guys.
recording. Don't say.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. No, it's fine. You can say you're not allowed to talk about it. I just didn't want you to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
I forgot we were recording.
Sorry, that's what I'm here for. My dad's a lawyer. Anyway, cool. Well, yeah, we're around. Feel free to pop into the chat if anything pops up, or if you have any questions as you, dig in.
Okay, sweet. Thanks.
Cool. Anything from you, Robert?
No, just I mentioned working on the Rails stuff. I think I actually don't think it'll be too much. I think to like get a first like PR, just like a simple like controller tracer in, and started that as like our starting point that we can increment on. So like kind of carve that as one PR. I gotta add something for that special handling around if you define an exceptions app. I gotta kind of figure out how we would patch into that, because it's a little bit weird, because it's like a Lambda or something that gets passed in there, and like I don't know how to patch that. But and then I think the only part where I think there might be some debate, because everything else is pretty straightforward, is like how we want to reuse or make use of Rack in this instrumentation. Like if we want to allow for some duplication, or if when you bring in Rails instrumentation, it just brings in Rack as well. That's how I have it set up right now, is like I'm just making Rack a dependency of the Rails instrumentation, and then I'm setting this like very light middleware in front in the call stack of the Rack one. So you get your controller action and name, and then one of the subspans would be all the bells and whistles that come with Rack. But I don't know if that's right.
Okay, bells and whistles come with Rack or with Rails?
With Rack, like all the tags and instrumentation that like comes built in with it. I don't know if we want to condense that to be a single thing.
I feel like it'd be nice if we had if you have a Rails app, you have a single middleware instead of like a Rack middleware and a Rails middleware. I know the Datadog instrumentation for Rails is quite a bit different and isn't necessarily using middleware. It's, I think, monkey patching action controller or something. So
It's
Yeah.
It's gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some conventions specific to us as a vendor that force us to do some unholy things, where there's a lot of work around sort of like our analytics engine involves in the way we define services, a little more like almost like different libraries or different services, which is weird. I think we're moving away from it, but it forces us to you basically want to get as much information as possible into one sort of top level span and have that be like almost overloaded. So what we end up doing is we patch Rack in a really light way, and then we attach that Rack span into the Rack env, which is accessible from the Rails level. And then once we get to Rails and you have some stuff like the more appropriate controller action, we like bubble it back up. Don't think of that as best practice.
One reason it's a good idea to try to lump it all in together is that you really want to have like the bulk of the information about the request on the server span, where it's like span kind is server.
Yes.
Because I think a variety of backends, I'm thinking at the moment of Splunk's microservices APM, they treat that server span specially and like extract an endpoint out of it and represent that differently. They don't necessarily look as deeply into internal spans. So if you've got this sort of nesting where there's like a rack span at the outer level and then a rail span that actually has the bulk of the information, then you're just going to lose a ton of stuff.
Yeah, that's why we have to bubble it up. So the rack span almost becomes, it's really like, it almost looks like a rail span, but it's technically for rack. And it's really because our query engine is like, when you query for something, you're like, hey, I want all my spans that are like, URL API with user ID 7. It's not like SQL where you can query across, do joins across
Right.
I think Honeycomb does that. So, there's like a few folks who do stuff, cool stuff like that, but not us. So yeah, I don't know I've also never used Jaeger actually, or Zipkin. So I'm curious what traditional users of those do, but cool. Anyway, yeah, happy to give feedback as I feel like just feel free to put some stuff early as a draft or whatever. I don't think anyone's like judgy.
Yeah. Just a little bit judgy, I hope, because I don't want to just like put something
ship
down.
Yeah, we have that integration. It breaks your app, but it's there.
Okay, I think with that, then I think I might, because we want to. I think it does make sense to have like a single span generated by the controller request instead of having the rack subspan. And I was just like really just trying to get like an MVP locally so I could start iterating on it. But I think I might start by duplicating some of the stuff out of rack, even if it's like could be extracted to a common place. Like I just looked at the Sinatra stuff and it's so minimal. Like
Yeah.
I don't like extracting stuff early because then you end up with just like this awkward thing that's unwieldy. So like maybe when we get our third thing that could make use of a common rack middleware type thing, then we should look at Rhoda or Hanami.
Grape? People use grape?
We have a Rhoda app at Shopify, and I just like it because you can't even Google documentation on it. And the people who are maintaining it didn't build it, and they don't know why it exists, and they curse it every time they have to make changes. They're like, why is this like this?
Isn't it really fast and uses very little memory?
Yeah, it's super fast. Anyways.
Good times.
Okay, cool. Anything else?
Nothing
Okay.
here. Good.
So,
Well,
cool.
Good to see you all.
Yeah.
Cool. Cheers.
See you
Take care.
next week. Bye.
Bye.